Hey guys, I'm Nate. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about the Hellcat exhaust. And is this too loud, as I'm sure maybe some of you guys saw the recent social media post on. Let's start the car. I actually have a little bit different sound setup today. I put a microphone in the trunk, which will hopefully capture the exhaust a little bit better than the one in here. You guys be the judge. So this is cold start. So the Hellcat exhaust is an active exhaust system. So what that means is that there's a baffle which can open and close depending on how much throttle, whatever it is. When it's open, obviously it's louder. When it's closed, it gets a little bit quieter. So in this case, cold start opens them wide. And so you're going to hear it now. When I cold start the car, it's going to sound loud. And then you hear as the car warms up how it gets a little bit quieter. Okay, so let's start this thing up. This car used to, when I first got it, in the colder months, I'd actually hear the baffle squeak open and squeak close. It hasn't done that in a while, but some of you all have a Hellcat. Maybe you've experienced that similar issue. Alright, so I think it's quieting down now. So let's go. Alright, so the Hellcat stock exhaust system, I think is probably one of the best exhaust systems that I've had in a car that comes from the factory. Or even aftermarket. On my 392, I used to have a 2011 392 6.4 liter, basically the same engine as the Scat. I thought that the exhaust system that came with the car, the factory exhaust system, was not loud enough. Like, I didn't really feel like I got enough out of the car hearing it. And I like to hear the engine. So I decided to put a Zoomers exhaust. And if you guys aren't familiar with Zoomers, it's an exhaust brand that is super loud, but what a lot of people on the forums were stating was it didn't drone that much, right? And so drone is basically this reverberation that you get that when the exhaust hits the right frequency, and for me it ended up being like right around that 2000 mark, 2000 RPM mark, highway cruising, you just get this really annoying reverberation. I couldn't stand it. I really didn't like hearing that sound. I thought it was really annoying, and even though I guess, I don't know, maybe it wasn't drone, maybe it was just that the exhaust was too loud, finally it just drove me to actually sell the car. And I sold that car and I got an Audi S5, and that car was too muted. It was muted for everything. It was a V6 supercharged, but I couldn't hear the supercharger, couldn't hear the exhaust, couldn't hear anything on that car. So I thought it was like going from one extreme to the other. I feel like the Hellcat is kind of in that middle arena where it's neither extreme. The stock exhaust system for a car like this, I feel like, is plenty loud, but it's also pretty tame when you're just cruising around. And a lot of that has to do with the active exhaust. So the baffle's closed, the exhaust system really isn't that loud. The baffle's open, yep, you're getting the full exhaust sound coming out of this car. So I love it. And down here in South Florida, when it gets a little cooler, starting to get cooler now, put the windows down, even better. Get the supercharger, mix it with the exhaust, it's awesome. Now on this car I did upgrade the intake, so it's a leg maker aftermarket intake. And I did that because I wanted more sound from the supercharger, not really because I was expecting to make more power. I don't really know that I'd even feel it in a car with this much power, like the slight boost you might get on an intake. The supercharger whine noise was noticeably louder with the leg maker. And I feel like those two tracks complement each other so well in this car. Supercharger whine, the exhaust, it just all works together as a symphony. So yeah, you could replace it. There's plenty of aftermarket options for the Hellcat. One of actually the most common aftermarket options here is, I guess, probably one of the cheapest, which is to get rid of mid mufflers, right? So the anatomy of the exhaust system in these Challengers, it was pretty much the same in my 392 as well, is you have your cats, pipe, mid mufflers, and then you have these things in the back which people think they're mufflers, but they're actually resonators. And then your tips, right? And so what I'd also done on the 392 was I tried to, there was this company called Blast and Bob's that sold a resonator delete kit. So basically you would cut off the resonators and you would put these Blast and Bob's pipes on them instead. And that was so loud, but it was like you got rid of the resonators. So the drone was insane with those blast and bob pipes. So finally I ended up going with the aftermarket Zoomers exhaust, which was a full catback system. So cats are still intact. The rest of the exhaust system is the Zoomer setup, but that was still even too loud, right? The noise, the muffling, comes actually from the mid mufflers. So Hellcat's the same thing, right? You've got your mid mufflers, you've got your resonators in the back, and that's pretty much what you have, right? This is that exhaust. Oh yeah, I was supposed to do a video on left lane camping, right? I don't know if this really qualifies as camping though. So yeah, so the anatomy of the Hellcat exhaust. So you got the same thing, right? Resonators are really just there. You can look this up. It's pretty much how passive noise cancellation technology works. It puts these sound waves in a point where they go at each other and they cancel each other out. Pretty neat. So what a lot of people will do on the Hellcat, if you want to get a little bit more noise and you don't want to introduce a lot of drone, just get rid of the mid mufflers. So they do them on the scats now too. There was a guy that lived in my neighborhood, had a beautiful purple scat pack. He did a mid muffler delete, heard that car, sounded great. So if you want a little bit more oomph, but you don't want to lose the active exhaust, you don't want to lose the resonator, do the mid muffler delete. I think that's probably a good option on this car. But otherwise, I'm here to tell you the stock exhaust system I think is close to perfect on this car. And if you don't want the baffles to close, like let's say you're cruising on the highway, what you can do is you can put the car in track mode. So you go in the SRT, and if you put this in track, it will actually keep the exhaust baffles open. So that's a neat trick. Otherwise, in any of the custom modes, I don't think it'll do that. But if you have it in track, you'll get the exhaust baffles completely open. So if you want a little bit more sound out of the stock exhaust, you could try that. Maybe it provides what you're looking for. But now let's get to the story about this guy in, of all places, obviously California. A cop pulled him over. He has a stock exhaust. I mean, the car doesn't look that stock. I'll put a link here to his social media so you can see for yourself if you haven't seen it. But essentially, a California cop, I think 2 cops pulled him over and basically told him that his exhaust is too loud as per California code. And they told him, oh, they can't be stock, you know, this is too loud. And they also told him, which I thought was hilarious, is you can't drive with the red key. That's only meant for the track. And that's why your exhaust is too loud, because he's driving with the red key. You know, I can't make this kind of stuff up. Maybe they thought he had an aftermarket exhaust because the car does look a little bit modified, but the red key thing is ridiculous, right? So I'm here to tell you that this car I think is pretty tame for driving around when the baffles are closed. Maybe he was driving around in track mode with the red key, I don't know. But I'm here to tell you the exhaust is pretty tame when you're just kind of putzing around. You don't want to wake up the neighbors. You want to be able to cruise around town without making too much noise. It's perfect. And if you want to hear the sound, put it in track mode, open it up, and you're going to hear that glorious exhaust. The exhaust system in this car really is one of the things that I think, again, I know I talk about this car, it's like I'm gushing over this car every time I describe it, but Dodge really did a great job when they built this car. And the exhaust system is just one more piece that I think they did an excellent job designing. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking about getting this car, you're not sure, is the exhaust going to be too quiet? Am I going to need an aftermarket exhaust? Is it going to be too loud? Is it going to be obnoxious? I'm here to tell you, I think this exhaust is perfect. Go for it. You're going to love it. You're going to love the car. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Check out these next ones, and I'll see you there. Thanks. Bye.